Oh, what we got here? We got the need to adjust always. Well, I don't know why. I set it level and it ends up lower than I think it will. I put this upside down. Wealth of Nations. Just finished playing through. And you know, it's funny because very, very seldomly do I play a game solitaire and I can't say how much I really like it. And this is a game where I am in that position. Don't get me wrong, I despised playing in solitaire. It does not play well solitaire at all. And for me, it's a little board, very, very flimsy. The components a little bit here. These little things are kind of nice. I like the way they set up. They got these little depressions which should help. They don't really much. Things are likely to fall around and slide around, but it should help with a little tiny table bump or something. I don't know. The game takes a big footprint, which you can see from the intro and such. For something that's just a little Euro, well, it's not that little a Euro. The expansion comes in its own little deck, box. All these pieces, fairly nice quality. You know, you got your cubes, you got your little tiles. There's something that I thought, you know, what I would have liked, maybe this would make the game too flexible, but I would have liked if these tiles were double-sided with different options. They've got a lot of texture on them. It probably wouldn't have been too much more expensive to print them double-sided. Because quite often I found myself way too limited in feeling by how I could build my terrain. But maybe that's intentional. And it definitely does provide quite a restriction on there, especially if you use the optional terrain blocks, which kind of clutter the board up more, and maybe I shouldn't have used them. The paper money is really crappy. I mean, you know, usually companies don't go out of their way to make it. This is not particularly pretty. It sticks together. It's, you know, kind of the cheaper variety of paper money. Since most people don't use it, it's probably not that big a deal. I always do, but I'm unhappy when it's crappy. Little flags are kind of cute. Little stars. You know, you got your nice shapes. I found the stars, at least, were a little hard to see for some of the powers. This guy especially, because of the lighting. And a player's color, the color of their stars, isn't all that closely associated, to everything else they have. The rules themselves were okay. I didn't like the way this kind of gets inserted into the rule book, but, you know, what else do you do when you have an expansion like that? You could, of course, follow, if I don't know how long apart these were done. I mean, it feels like this must have been decided long after the original game was decided on. So, just because of changing the order, the final bidding and everything, a significant amount of play must have gone into it before the expansion was decided. It significantly changed. The second edition rules are a big difference from the original in terms of playability and in terms of really actually changing the nature of the mechanics. The game, it doesn't really disrupt the game flow much. So, anyway, getting back to my point, what can I say about it? Because I can certainly level some criticisms about it. It does not represent this growth of industrial nations, okay? You don't start off with, well, let's look at some of these packages, but one of them definitely starts off with a couple of factories as all it has. You don't start off as an industrialized thing, and you also don't start off as a sort of monolithic economy, this very highly specialized economy that if you don't start as in this game, you're at a disadvantage, okay? The guy who has the integrated economy chip, it's not that terrible. But the wartime economy one isn't very good because, man, again, it's kind of this mixture. The thing is, with everything except food production, no, with everything except energy production, you need a blue cube to run the industry. So immediately, every single industry, every single tile block that you have comes with a cost. Every block that you add. Every tile you add comes with this food cost. And that can be kind of high at the beginning. Strangely enough, food prices go way down. I think, that may have been an artifact of the game I played, with one person dominating farming and just building continuously. Which we saw didn't work too well. You'd think that cornering that market, no matter what the market is, should be kind of potent. But the truth of the matter is, the market itself causes problems. And the fact that you need cash and you need to get rid of some of those cubes, well, you can't just improve your bargaining position automatically. And that's fine. I kind of like the market being in the game as this regulator of the free market. Like the free market, had it been fully there, like it is in Settlers of Catan, I got food, man, and you don't, and you need food. What do I want from you? How much are you going to give me to get what you absolutely need? Well, it's not like that in this game. In this game, because there's this broad global market that you can have a huge influence on, but you can't dominate completely. And the truth of the matter is, your prices that you're negotiating with other people are influenced more by the market than vice versa. Your decisions influence the market, even if you're the main producer, less, I think, than the market influences what your bargaining position is. Because there are always cubes available. And there's always a willingness to buy cubes. There's no such thing as a full, on surplus. Somebody will figure out what to do with it, if it's just stocking and hoarding your commodities, and there's a lot of somebodies out there, and there's other inputs that aren't accounted for in the game. So, anyway, the fact that it starts out as this kind of non-diversified economy, it's not about a slow growth of industry, etc., saddened me. I had this hope, I don't know why. Certainly nothing else led me to believe that it wouldn't be like that. I also, from looking at videos, from looking into the information on the game, thought this one was going to be right up my alley. And again, I'm kind of hit with this, alright, that just totally was no fun to solo. But I'm not absolutely certain I wouldn't enjoy this, not solo. Now let's look at what its biggest problem is, from my point of view. Its biggest problem is the same thing that Age of Renaissance has. This is a personal issue, nothing against the game itself. But if I sit down to play this, it's going to be very hard to keep track of what it is I'm working on. Now, with these planning mats, it should be possible. Now, I was setting up on the littler mat what I wanted to do, and that wasn't working terribly well. Mainly because I was setting the cubes up in the wrong place and then aiming for the wrong thing or whatever. And I think that may only be a problem solo. I think the planning mats are going to work pretty well in a multiplayer environment. So what about, hey, it's going to be all about calculation and cutting, territory out and everything. That should be something I really, really like. And that's why I say I can't really say whether or not this game appeals tremendously. you know, my experience here was very negative. The problem is I'm probably not going to get a chance to play it. It's, you know, my wife is totally uninterested in it, and we ended up playing Kingmaker instead of this because she was interested in that. And I've just got so many other games to look at, and this is going to fall off my horizon. Had I, you know, brought this back to my old Realms of Fantasy group and gamed with them, I think we would have had a great kick with it. I think this may have ended up being one of them Euros had it come in a later period that I kind of liked. But it's hard to tell. There's limiting factors on this in terms of the growth, etc., that seem unnatural. The military option doesn't give you a whole lot of ability to penalize someone. What it kind of does is gives you this ability to hurt you both or to steal from them, but it doesn't really feel like something that you target at the leader. In fact, it seems to me that the leader might be very difficult to target in this game. So even though you've got this high level of interaction, you even have maybe less ability to target a leader than you do in, say, Settlers of Catan or Civilization, which are trading games, because in this game, there's this external market I can deal with. Now, there is in Settlers as well, but it's more painful, I think. I think making deals with this external market, though, is a significant setback, which could help hinder things. Building armies on your enemy's border may not have the effect you want. I build an army. If you ignore me, I get to take something from you and I get a bonus. That's great. But if they build an army, we're just escalating. And that's sort of the after the Holocaust feel here, is we're both paying something we could better use, and neither of us is going to get anything out of it. We're going to fight and both be destroyed, and there's that. And I kind of like that aspect as well. So there's a lot of things in here that are appealing, yet the amount that this disappointed me frustrated me in playing it. And it's really hard to point to a why. Maybe it's just me right now. Maybe I'm not in the mood for a game. I don't know. This was really exciting to me when I picked it up. And within the first night, I was dragging my feet and not enjoying this. Very much the same kind of feeling I had with Kingmaker. Anyway, I have very little that I can say of worth about this game. Not in, oh my god, there's nothing of worth about the game. I mean, it's really hard for me to grasp what to speak about it. And in a lot of ways, I feel the same way about some of the, I mentioned this before, some of the Winsome-style train games. You know, I feel like I should like it, but maybe I'm not really catching it on all cylinders the way I used to with the economic games. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's just becoming harder for me to absorb these things. But this definitely is fitting into that kind of pile of, I feel like I got kind of screwed by looking at a Euro thinking it looked really exciting, and then not being thrilled with what I came up with. There's also the, maybe I just don't like heavier Euros, but to me 18XX and Civilization are on that heavier Euro side. Advanced Civ is on the too heavy side. Age of Renaissance causes this brain hurt when I'm like trying to balance out everything I'm trying to do. This one gives a nice little physical device to help with that though, and that's big. But usually the Euros that I find myself liking are very, very light. Not necessarily light on strategy, just light on rules. Not a lot of pieces to play with. Not a lot of mechanisms to fiddle with. Ra was great. Carcassonne I enjoy. Okay, maybe those are fairly simple. I remember liking Tigris and Euphrates, and I've got that picked up recently. I enjoyed Puerto Rico, although I felt like that was kind of, I don't know, I felt like I played that kind of randomly, and I feel like I kind of played this randomly, and the Winsome games kind of randomly. which isn't the way to enjoy them, and there could be just this kind of burnout on all these things. And I really ought to stay away from picking up more because I'm not really getting the full experience out of them. These kind of games are meant to be played more often than I'm liable to be able to do it. Anyway, up it goes.